It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the movies of December 20th, 1996. You might hear a humming in the background here. Well, the day I'm recording this, it turns out it's 90 degrees outside. Well, I'm recording this at nighttime, but it's still pretty hot in here, so that's why the fan is up here. So, if you hear a noise going on, that's what that is. I have the fan cranked up to high right now, so, anyway, that's why you'll hear that humming in the background while I'm talking here. But let's get to the movies. We have a ton of movies to look at here, 8 to be exact, so let's just jump on into it. And we'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is, of course, Beavis and Butthead Do America.
In cooperation with authorities, we request your assistance in apprehending America's two most wanted fugitives. Sketch artists have prepared the following likenesses. This Christmas, the Beavis and Butthead hit the road. To seek their fortune.
I want to watch TV.
Find romance.
Can I help you with that?
I love you. Come to Butthead.
You got 2 seconds.
Is that gonna be enough time?
Win fame.
I am going to you.
These are the most dangerous men in America. I want these faces in front of every Fed and 2 big sheriff within 1,000 miles.
Get the hell out of the cockpit!
Do Fed.
Now!
And doom an entire nation.
Check out what is TV.
I think I found the remote.
Beavis.
That's amazing.
This is the coolest thing I have ever seen.
You want to see something really cool? Butthead.
On a bus with chicks. Hey, baby.
In an adventure too big for your television.
Did we miss Baywatch?
No. Beavis and Butthead Do America.
I extend my deepest thanks.
He said extend.
Coming this Christmas.
So, fun fact, this movie made $20 million on its opening weekend, which at the time, in 1996, was the highest opening weekend for a December release in box office history. That's incredible when you think about where we've come in the nearly 30 years since then. Not even a year afterward, this thing would get beaten by Scream 2, and then later Titanic. We'll get to Scream in just a little bit, but Beavis and Butthead Do America. I mean, if you've seen the TV show, the show was very popular at the time. If you've seen the show, you pretty much get everything you want here, and then some. I love the way this movie builds itself. It starts off like a normal Beavis and Butthead episode, and then as it goes along, it becomes a bigger and bigger adventure, and it's what makes Beavis and Butthead so special. Like, Beavis and Butthead, I think I've said it before, were a lot smarter than I think a lot of people give it credit for. These two guys are dumb, but what made it so smart was the world around these two guys. Like, there were so many things in this movie, in the TV show as well, where so many situations where you could see Beavis and Butthead as the smart people in this, and the people that are supposed to be smart are kind of the dumbasses. It's a great little satirical, it has a great satirical tone about itself, and the movie takes that to another level because, man, this movie is very entertaining, and it basically just gives you everything you want in Beavis and Butthead, and then some. And it goes as far as it can go, and still manages to get a PG-13 rating on it, which is still pretty amazing. I mean, the animation is pretty good here. You could definitely see Mike Judge going from Beavis and Butthead to what he would eventually do with King of the Hill. The animation style is starting to go down a route that would later be adapted into King of the Hill, which only premiered a year after this movie came out. And Beavis and Butthead would still go on for another year after this movie came out too. The story is very nicely done. I like, again, the building up of a grander story for these characters is always fun to watch. The characters are the same way they are in the TV show. They're very well done. The voice acting really is spectacular. You've got some pretty big names in here. I mean, Demi Moore, Bruce Willis, Robert Stack, Greg Kinnear, David Letterman, and so many others, all used in this movie very well here. The animation is so good here. Even the trippy as hell desert sequence done by Rob Zombie. It makes no sense. It's never brought up again, but at the same time, it's just so amazing to watch. I mean, really, there's not much more I could say about this movie. If you don't like Beavis and Butthead, you're probably not going to like this, but if you love Beavis and Butthead, this is just up your alley. It manages to give you a great extended feature-length episode of the series, manages to pack on great amounts of comedy, impressive voice acting, and just an overall fun film experience. I can't recommend this movie enough. If you love Beavis and Butthead, you need to see this movie. And if you don't, you probably won't enjoy it, but I wouldn't say that if you saw it, you wouldn't hate it. But that's just my take on it. But so yeah, that's Beavis and Butthead Do America. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next film, and that is Wes Craven's Scream.
Scared, are you?
Someone has taken their love of fear one step too far.
We know you're not the killer.
Solving this mystery
Everybody's a suspect!
is going to be murder.
Who are you? The question is, where am I? We all go a little mad sometimes.
Scream, the new thriller from Wes Craven, rated R.
So Scream, of course, has a place in history, but, I mean, when you really look at the box office for this movie, this was not a big hit when it came out. In fact, opening a movie like this, a horror film, a week before Christmas, was seen as a pretty risky gamble, and a lot of people actually consider this movie to be dead on arrival, and it was actually Bob Weinstein who ordered the film be released on this weekend, which is a date others were critical of, as it was, again, the Christmas period where seasonal and family films were more prevalent. Weinstein basically made the argument that in the film's favor that horror fans and teenagers have nothing interesting to watch during the December period. And yeah, the film barely crossed $6 million. $6.6 million. It didn't even hit $7 million, and it was considered to be a failure at first. But then the following weeks, the film gained some word of mouth, gained traction, and the movie, the numbers didn't drop. They actually increased as the weeks went on, and that's why the film eventually went on to gross over $100 million and actually become a critical success. So it's a very interesting situation that they put into this, and sure enough, the next year, the Scream 2 came out around the same time, and it actually did perform a lot better. I think it actually did 3 times better than the original film did. But, I've talked about this series before. I'm not the biggest Scream fan, honestly. I do like this movie a lot. I do really like the first 2 movies, actually. I think this took a lot of the concepts that were introduced in Wes Craven's New Nightmare and took it to a new level. A satirical horror thriller that basically satirizes every horror movie. I mean, it's a film that was very unique for the time period. You have characters aware of real-world horror films and discuss the cliches. They discuss the tropes. They try to find ways to subvert themselves from it. I mean, it's a film that deserves all the praise that it deserves for doing something very unique and very different. And it works very well here. It's a very solid film. It's a very funny movie. It's a very good slasher movie. I mean, they have the balls to axe off Drew Barrymore in the beginning of the movie, which is pretty impressive when you really think about it for a film like this. And it was a movie that really revitalized the slasher genre as a whole, because at this point it was pretty much dead. All the good slashers like Jason, Freddy, Chucky, their franchises were kind of dying out at this point, and so this led to a new renaissance for the slasher film genre, and it made for a very entertaining film. It introduced a lot of us to some really good talent. I mean, David Arquette, Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, who had already gained her name on Friends, Matthew Lillard, Rose McGowan, Skeet Ulrich. I mean, it has a really solid cast, a really good story, and a really fun villain played by Roger Jackson and Ghostface. I mean, Roger Jackson, of course, is best known, other than Ghostface, as Mojo Jojo from the Powerpuff Girls. And the movie itself is just really, really good. It's a really damn good movie. And I've said before, I'm not the biggest Scream fan. I think after 3, I kind of dozed off. I kind of was past that point. I haven't seen any of the newer Scream movies. I don't know if they're any good. I really don't know if they're any good or not, nor do I really have a whole lot of interest in checking them out. But everyone kept saying the new ones are pretty good. But I still stick by the original 2 movies being really damn good movies. They're really well done, really well and very inventive. Great writing by Kevin Williamson, a great script by Wes Craven. Funny enough, the script was originally called Scary Movie, which actually went on to become the parody of these type of movies just a few years later by the Wayans brothers. But we'll eventually get to those ones when we get into the new millennium in 2000. But like I said, Scream, it's definitely worthy of all the praise it gets. It's a very unique horror movie, a brilliantly made film, a very funny, very scary, very tension-filled movie, a great twist at the end, great moves that you don't see really coming in the beginning. It's just a fun movie. I highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it already, you're doing yourself a major, major disservice by not doing so. So that is Scream. So let's go ahead and take a look at our next film, and that is the romantic comedy One Fine Day.
We have to take your friend Maggie to school, and we can't be late because of your field trip. Hi, Jack.
Hi, Daddy.
Call Melanie Parker.
Melanie Parker.
Now let her know that you don't need her to take Maggie to school for you.
What time does your school start?
I don't know.
That probably starts around 9. Everything starts around 9.
I'm gonna miss the boat trip.
We'll make it, I promise.
Hey, come back! I got kids here! Jack! It's a big uh-oh, right?
You must be Kristen's ex-husband.
You must be. You don't forget to call Melanie Parker. It's on the line 3 times.
Taxi!
Wait.
There's this guy who has not only ruined my date, but Sammy's as well.
Mom hates your dad. So, my dad hates your mom.
Just want to know if you're wearing panties. Huh? What say I watch the kids while you do your presentation, and then you watch it for me later on today while I do the column.
I only let incredibly responsible people watch my
I'm
son.
incredibly responsible.
I'm hungry, Daddy.
Want a Tic Tac?
Now, honey, you can't make any noise in the office. I have a really important meeting, okay?
You're asking me for help.
It would appear that way, wouldn't it?
That I can't cover for you. Now, you've got less than 6 hours. Otherwise, we're putting a retraction, and it'll be your last.
I was just calling.
I just wanted to call it because you don't really trust me. Sammy, no. Put the gun down.
I was sure you were going to either show up 3 hours late or not at all.
Guess what? I'm not like every other man you know.
Guess what? I'm not like every other woman you know.
Maybe you should let somebody help you out every once in a while.
Definitely not. I've got all of these little balls up in the air.
But you're not a control freak.
No, I'm a single working mother.
I met someone today. I don't know how to describe her. She's luminous. She told you she likes me?
It's so obvious, Daddy.
20th Century Fox presents Michelle Pfeiffer.
You're blaming your Peter Pan complex on your mother. The one you're so proud
You have
of.
friends.
I don't have time for friends.
George Clooney
That's because of your Captain Hook complex.
My what?
in a story about 2 busy people
What would you do if I kissed you right now?
who just might find the time for each other.
Do you want to kiss me
I
right
wouldn't have
now?
mentioned it if I didn't.
One fine day.
I wonder what they're doing.
Wait.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, 1996 was a good year to be George Clooney. I mean, you start the year off starring in From Dusk Till Dawn, which is a pretty damn good movie. It becomes a cult classic. And then you end the year with this movie, which is not really well known as much as From Dusk Till Dawn, but it's a really good movie. I really think this movie deserves a lot more attention than I think people give it credit for. I mean, this is a pretty solid movie. It doesn't break any new grounds or boundaries, but, you know, it's a 50s-esque style romantic comedy set in the modern 90s type. And I think it's done pretty well, and it works because the chemistry between George Clooney and Michelle Pfeiffer, I think, works very well. You've got 2 charming and charismatic actors working off of each other. You buy into the romantic relationship that's building on them. And you even got the kid actors in here, Mae Whitman from Independence Day and Alex D. Linz, who would later be seen in Home Alone 3. They have a likable charm to each other, and they're not just the typical, hey, just look at cute for the camera actors. They feel like real kids, and you can definitely buy into their relationship. In their relationship as well, as they try to get along as their parents are trying to get along as well. The movie itself does not break any new grounds or formulas. Like I said before, it's a pretty standard romantic comedy setup. Excuse me, but there are more than enough funny moments in here that I think is warranted of an enjoyable film overall. I mean, George Clooney has those great quippy one-liners in this movie that just work so well for the characters he plays. He's very funny in here, and this is a movie that I don't think gets a lot of attention, and I think it really does. It's a surprisingly charming romantic comedy. It's not a revolutionary achievement by any means, but it's a fun, formulaic, well-made film that works off the chemistry of its leads, good comedy, good writing, and good, solid entertainment value all around. It's a nice, very modernized romantic comedy. I think it works very well. Like I said, it's not going to break any new barriers. It's not going to do anything unique or creative with it, but what it gives you is a very solid and enjoyable film. And if you really want to see some really good underrated works by Clooney and Pfeiffer, I recommend this one a lot. This is a really entertaining film. I really enjoy this one a lot. One Fine Day. So, moving on to the next movie, and that is Jack Lemmon and James Garner in My Fellow Americans.
Jack Lemmon is ex-President Kramer.
So a message from the president. We'll go. Thanks, Jim. Jim's off today, sir. I'm Bruce.
Oh, sorry.
You and Jim look very much alike. Jim's black, sir.
Yeah, I know.
But you're both tall.
James Garner is ex-President Douglas.
I can't believe I just did it with Matt Douglas. My mother has a commemorative plate with your face on it.
Apparently, I'm dishwasher safe.
Dan Aykroyd is current President Haney.
Not so fast, Carl. Slow down. I don't like people running faster than I do. Makes me look pokey.
Kramer and Douglas always ran against each other.
Let's talk about popularity. There was only one assassination attempt on me. You had 3.
2. The woman in Phoenix doesn't count. You only had a starter pistol.
Stop.
But now,
Mr. President, I'm afraid a situation's come up. Here it is.
they've discovered a cover-up
We've had that buried for years.
of presidential proportions.
Somebody wants us dead. When they find out we're not, they're going to come looking for us.
And they're running together.
1, 2. God, that felt good.
We'll go public.
Without evidence,
The people will believe us.
Why?
Because we're presidents. Okay, they won't believe us.
Let's stop talking. We're about to bond. It'll make me bop.
Jack Lemmon,
I was Time Magazine's Man of the Year.
So was Hitler.
Not twice. Shoot him!
James Garner,
Give me a sip.
Yeah, I'm about to share my coffee with the Washington Love Machine. You can spit in a petri dish and start a whole new civilization.
Dan Aykroyd,
Vice President Matthews going to this thing?
Yes, sir.
Well, let's remind him that these people are from the Netherlands, not the nether regions.
John Hurd as the Vice President, and Lauren Bacall.
It's a clock and we both know it. It's a kick in the... Sorry, sweetheart. Please, I'm a politician's wife. I have a set of my own.
In a story about life, liberty, and the pursuit of 2 presidents.
Oh, yeah. Just blend in.
Just blend in. This is amazing.
Not really. We march in these things all the time.
What are you doing here? Are you coming out?
No, I'm not coming out. He is.
Oh, my God. He's squeezing my breast again.
My fellow Americans.
So when you watch this trailer, you definitely get a sense that this movie was supposed to be another Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau comedy, which it really was. Walter Matthau was going to star in the film again with Jack Lemmon, but he dropped out, and so they chose James Garner to put him in here with Jack Lemmon. And you could definitely tell that those two, Lemmon and Garner, as much as they try their best here, and they do have some legitimately funny moments here, it really just isn't enough there that, you know, Matthau and Lemmon really could have made this work a whole lot better. But, you know, regardless of that, I still think this is a pretty enjoyable movie. This is directed by Peter Siegel, who had done Naked Gun 33 and a third, The Final Insult, as well as Tommy Boy, which is one of my favorite comedies of all time. And I really like him as a director. I've talked about it before with the other movies he's done. There's not been a bad movie of his that I've really hated from him. It's been mostly good movies. Some of them have not been as funny as others, but there's never been one that's been an all-around bad movie. And I'd probably put this in one of his lesser films because, like I said, you know, Lemmon and Gardner, as much as they try their best here, they do get some funny moments here and there, but you could definitely tell that Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon probably could have made this a lot more funnier than it really could have been. But, like I said, Jack Lemmon and James Garner, I think, work fine in here. You got a really good cast overall here. Dan Aykroyd playing the president. You got Lauren Bacall, Esther Roll, John Hurd, Wilford Brimley, Bradley Whitford, Jeff Yeager. I mean, there's a good amount of talent in this movie, and there are a lot of good jokes in here that do still hold up very well here. I think this is a very funny movie. It's not as funny as I think it could have been, because I mean, what they could have gotten with Lemmon and Matthau back together, but you know what? They would eventually start another comedy that comes out the following year, Out to Sea, which is a really good movie, which we'll get to that one eventually. But, you know, my fellow Americans, I think it is a very good movie. It's a very solid film. There are more than enough laughs to make the enjoyment factor throughout the running time work. I wish it could have been a whole lot funnier. That's my biggest real complaint about it, is that there really is a lot more potential with this that could have been done, but you definitely could tell that Matthau and Lemmon really would have killed this movie and make it a whole lot better. But as it is, it's perfectly salvageable. I think it is a very fine film. I think it definitely could have been a lot funnier considering what it could have been, but as it is, it's a perfectly fine film. It's a film that I've seen many, many times in the years since it's come out, and it's one that I still get a lot of good laughs out of. It's a legitimately funny film. It has a lot of good moments. Not the best moments, not the best directed film by Peter Siegel, but still a very good film nonetheless. I recommend checking it out. If you like his other works, you'll definitely find some value in this one. So, with that said, on to the next movie, and that is Rob Reiner's Ghost of Mississippi.
This story is true. It was a crime that tortured a family.
Mr. Bank, will you shoot Maggie Evans? No, sir.
It was an injustice that damaged a nation. brother Medgar was the civil rights movement.
And 30 years later,
All right.
it was a case America couldn't afford to lose.
You ain't never gonna get 12 people to convict me of killing a nigger in the state of Mississippi.
Ghosts of Mississippi, a Rob Reiner film, rated PG-13. At theaters January 3rd.
Not quite the American President good, but then again, it's nowhere near as North bad as it could have been. I mean, this is a film that is based off the story of the white supremacist accused of the 1963 assassination of civil rights activist Medgar Evers, and there is a good story that can be told around here. I think James Woods does a very good job playing the character of Byron De La Beckwith. I think that's why he deserved to get a nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He's had a couple of good movies that got him Oscar nominations around this time period. There's this one, and then I thought Vampires was one of those ones that he probably should have gotten nominated for, but we'll eventually get to that one in 98. But as far as the movie itself goes, it's definitely not one of Rob Reiner's best movies. In fact, by this point, Rob Reiner kind of went on a downward spiral after this. American President brought him back up a little bit, but I'm looking at some of the movies that he's directed since then. There's not that many good ones. There's ones that have some elements to them that could be that are decent. Rumor has it, The Bucket List, Flipped. But other than that, though, the movies that he has after The American President don't compare to his early works. I really think North kind of dinged him up big time, and it took him a long time to really get back on track. And this is a film that has its heart in the right place. There's a lot of promise to it, but it just falls into the category of an Oscar bait film, a film that's trying to win awards and doesn't really do anything unique or revolutionary to make it stand out. It feels like a movie that they're just trying to force the Academy Awards to give him an Oscar for, and it didn't work out in the end. It's a film that has its heart in the right place, has some good performances all around, but not really enough to really recommend it. It's a film that's fine for what it is, but I'm never going to watch it again after watching it one time. So that's Ghosts of Mississippi. So let's go ahead and take a look at our next film, and that is Diane Keaton, Meryl Streep, Robert De Niro in Marvin's Room.
That can be a blessing.
After 20 years apart, this family's getting back together.
You mind if I smoke?
Yes.
Okay, I'll be real quiet.
Mom, I'm really sorry I burnt the house down.
ABC raves, I promise it'll make you laugh. And now Diane Keaton is an Academy Award nominee for Best Actress.
Yes!
Meryl Streep, Leonardo DiCaprio, Diane Keaton, and Robert De Niro. Marvin's Room, rated PG-13. Now playing select cities February 28th everywhere.
Again, not a bad movie. There's a lot of good performances around. Streep, Leonardo DiCaprio, Keaton, De Niro, Hume Cronin's also in here, Dan Hedaya, Cynthia Nixon, Margot Martindale. It has a lot of good things to it, and I think the performances do carry it overall, but as far as the movie itself goes, there's not really much of a rewatchability to it. I mean, it's not a bad movie per se. It certainly is better than Ghosts of Mississippi, but it's a film that doesn't really have a lot there that makes me want to keep going back to it. For a one-time watch, I think I got more than enough that I wanted to get from it. But other than that, though, there's nothing really there that makes it stand out or makes me want to see it over and over again. It's like, for a one-time watch, I'm glad I saw it, but I really have no real interest in watching it again. I mean, a decent film, a decent film that's actually more good than bad. It's not a classic by any means, and like I said, you watch it one time, you get pretty much all you're going to get from it, honestly. Good film, but not one I want to watch again anytime soon. So that's Marvin's Room. On to the next movie, Renee Zellweger in The Whole Wide World.
Marvin, this is Bob Howard. Bob's the greatest pulp writer in the whole world. I'm the boss. Top writer's the employee. No argument.
Some could say that this was the film that got Renee Zellweger the role in Jerry Maguire. Supposedly, when she auditioned for the film, Zellweger met Cameron Crowe several times, but had trouble convincing her she could play a 20-something woman rather than a girl. And then her agent sent her the tape of this movie, and that was the reason why she got hired. So you basically have a story where it takes place in 1933. You follow this Texas school teacher, played by Zellweger, and she's introduced by friends to this Pulp Fiction writer, Robert E. Howard, who's played here by Vincent D'Onofrio. A relationship soon develops between the two, but is doomed by personality conflicts and life events such as the terminal illness of Howard's mother. That's really all I know about this movie. I've never seen it, so I can't really say if it's good or not, but Vincent D'Onofrio and Renee Zellweger could make this movie very enjoyable for what it is, but it's not something that I really know too much about, so I can't really say if it's good or not. But the promise is definitely there, just by the casting alone. So I wish I had some more to say about that one, but that's really all I know about it. So let's go ahead and move on to the last movie, and that is Sandra Bullock and Chris O'Donnell in Love and War.
I feel like this.
Champion, most beautiful place on God's earth.
And close your eyes.
Sandra Bullock, Chris O'Donnell. In war, they found each other. In each other, they found love. In love and war.
I love you.
Rated PG-13. Starts Friday.
Another movie like Ghost of Mississippi, where you have the pieces there for something really good with Sandra Bullock, Chris O'Donnell, based off the writing of Ernest Hemingway, directed by Richard Attenborough, and it just doesn't really work. It feels like a film that wants to be more of a love story taking place in World War II, or World War One, I should say. Excuse me, not World War II, World War One, but it never really does anything to make it really stand out on its own. It's a movie that's it's more of a Lifetime movie than it should be a war epic. It's a movie that doesn't really recreate the works of Ernest Hemingway's early life very well. It gets trapped in a schlocky, mediocre romantic drama that's trying to be an Oscar contender, and it just doesn't work. It's not a very enjoyable film. It's a bland movie. The chemistry between Bullock and O'Donnell doesn't really work all that well. It's a very forgettable film, and for Richard Attenborough, who's made some really good films up to this point, we've talked about some of his great movies. We've talked about Chaplin. We've talked about Cry Freedom. We've talked about A Bridge Too Far, Gandhi. Shadowlands was a decent film, but this is when his downfall started to kind of take place as a director. He wasn't making the great movies that he was back in the day, and as much as this movie wants to try to be something grand and epic, it just doesn't really do. And I think they really dropped the ball on this one big time. I mean, this is a film that could have been so much more interesting, but it just falls into a been there, done that type of scenario, trying to combine a romantic drama with a war epic, and it just doesn't mesh together in this case. It's a big disappointment on so many levels. In Love and War. And so with that said, that wraps up another edition of Time About the Movies. When we meet next time, we'll wrap up 1996. We're on Christmas weekend 1996, with 9 movies overall. We've got Michael, John Travolta and Andy McDowell starring in the movie about John Travolta as an angel. The Evening Star, the sequel to Terms of Endearment that I know all of us were waiting for. I should put that in quotation marks because not really. Woody Harrelson in The People vs. Larry Flint. Madonna starring in Evita. Albert Brooks' Mother. The Portrait of a Lady, Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet, Some Mother's Son, I'm Not Rappaport. 9 movies overall to look at, so we've got a big show to wrap up 96, and then the following week we'll have some of the 96 leftovers, movies that nobody really ever talks of, is that were not in this list, but I wanted to bring up, and we'll deal with those when we get to the next after that one. But before that, we've got the last week of 96 coming up on the next episode. So with that all said, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So, thank you very much for watching, I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.